This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice. Make it on. Mandate. Get it on. Welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. Mark Garrigus in studio with thoughts.
In studio. Big show. Big week. Boy, I mean, I can't tell you the number of calls, texts, people that I got stopped yesterday in La Cañada by two guys who do duct cleaning, who wanted to know why we hadn't done an emergency episode.
Well, here it
two
is.
Guys I'd never met before, and said, "Here you go." So I said, "Just wait, Adam and I will do it." You know, the big thing of the week going into today's episode was going to be somewhere between Amber Heard takes the stand and the Supreme Court Roe v. Wade draft opinion that was leaked. However, something happened last night that I thought of you all night after I saw it and all this morning.
Wow, I'm flattered and intrigued.
Dave Chappelle getting assaulted at the Hollywood Bowl. I want your brain on this because did you see the video of it? Mm-hmm. The video, Gary's going to. By the way, we're going to torture Gary today because he's going from window to window. He's flying solo, right?
Well, my general head on this kind of stuff. He was tackled on stage,
but it was a good tackle. Did you see it?
Form textbook. Yeah.
Watch the tackle.
I've seen it many times. It was a textbook tackle. The guy obviously played a little ball in high school.
Was that Will Smith?
So,
okay. I mean, it was put your shoulder down.
He launched himself.
Right. And Chappelle, pretty good sense of balance, right?
Yeah. So here's my head on this stuff.
Okay.
Two incidents do not make a trend. You know, like I've been around long enough. You hear about. You know, the news gets all worked up where there's freeway shootings in Los Angeles, and the next thing you know, pit bulls, shark attacks. Like there's a thing. So I don't think it's a trend per se. You know, and as a person that's going out this weekend and doing stand up,
where are you going?
I'm going to Indianapolis. I will be at the Helium.
It's a rather civilized part of the country.
I will not
be get tackled.
Looking over my shoulder. I will be fine on stage. If someone does attack me, please, let's not spill my drink. That's my greatest concern.
Do you want them to use good form, or do you want to kind of matador them right by you?
I would like them to take a good angle of pursuit, get your head on the right side. So meaning if I'm moving left to right, you want your head on the outside.
Oh, wrap up. The grain. Wrap up.
Right, and no spearing.
Yeah, no spearing.
Keep your head up. I don't want to hit the crown of your helmet. So it is not a trend. On the other hand, there is a time we're living in, and the time is we are taking words and we are then converting them into danger. And then if they're converted into danger, then that's a call to action. So if you say, Trump's up there and he's bloviating, he's saying a bunch of shit I disagree with, fuck that guy, that's not a call to action. But if you say he's Hitlerian and he's a dictator and he's coming for you, well, there's not a human being, there's not a pacifist on the planet that I've met that wouldn't have appreciated Hitler being assassinated in 1938.
Or somebody now who thinks Putin should be.
Right. So once you start saying Hitlerian, and now the difference between Twitter and Putin is the cause for human death and misery. Twitter is just words, but we're in this place where even silence is violence now. And if silence can be violence, well, then why can't words bring on violence? So you say, the Elon Musk, he buys Twitter, then he opens it up, and they say it becomes a Wild West, and they say all these things, and that puts women in danger, and that puts people of color and the LGBT, that puts them in harm's way, and that makes it dangerous. Well, if you're really saying these words, these jokes, or these opinions are dangerous, then the next logical thing is, well, what are we going to do? Because if, in fact, what this person is saying is dangerous or causes violence or is an attack or all the other hyperbole that we ascribe onto these words or these tweets or these jokes, well, then it sort of beckons a reaction. Like, well, now what? What shall we do?
I have 2 questions for you. One, referring to your 2 incidents does not make a pattern. But you know what unites these 2 incidents? Chris Rock was on stage.
All right. I know.
Okay, so
Right.
there's a pattern there. Number 2, he commented afterwards, and this is where my mind went. Chappelle immediately said, quipped he was trans. Do we know, Gary, who this person, the accused, is?
Yeah, there are pictures of him. I don't know if there's much more known about him. What I noticed was that he had a very swollen shut eye that clearly he took a few shots. It was reported that Jamie Foxx might have gotten a few haymakers in. And
Jamie's in, I read Men's Health. I see Jamie all the time.
Well, he's playing Mike Tyson.
Right.
Yeah, he's in shape.
And by the way, I have represented, I don't think it's public because we settled the case. I represented more than one household name entertainer who's been assaulted on stage where the security company ended up having to write a check.
Right.
Well, right before he rushed the stage, it's been reported that Chappelle was doing a bit and talking about how, as a result of the reaction to his Netflix special, he has just upped his own personal security. So that was like the topic du jour when this guy rushed the stage.
Well, so
bad hires, I guess.
And this'll dovetail into Roe versus Wade because
we're all about making the connections.
Well, because you're saying you pass this and then innocent women are going to die, and this is an attack, and this is violence, and this is an attack on poor women and women of color and the whatever. Well, now again, we're taking this thing that's an act or from the Supreme Court or a tweet or a joke, and we're then transforming it into an attack or a violent or going to cause violence. And thus we're sort of opening the door to attacking physically whoever is making the legislation or the jokes or the tweets that you have described as violent.
I couldn't agree more that I don't know why we have. What is I guess it's obviously a rhetorical flourish, but why do we have to cast this draft? And by the way, this is not, contrary to what people keep saying, this is not the first time that a draft opinion has been leaked. I mean,
it isn't.
No, Gary, find the case. There was a rather famous case where somebody had leaked it for pecuniary gain. There was a pecuniary gain.
What does that mean?
They wanted to make some money. It was,
really?
Yeah, it was a financial motivation. And I've seen others. I haven't independently confirmed this. I've heard that the Roe v. Wade actual opinion was leaked, but I was interested in, or I remembered reading about somebody involving a case involving Wall Street had leaked a draft opinion because they had taken a stock position and there was financial motivation. So it's not unique here, and I know there's a lot of arguments about who leaked it and what was the motivation. Yeah, that, to me, that's kind of beside the point. Interestingly to me is more what it says about the confirmation process. I think that's interesting because, and Gary, I don't know if he's got it here, but somebody or a couple of people had put on the recent statements by various justices when they're going through the confirmation process. Mm-hmm. So you can talk about a lot of things, but this to me is interesting. If Gary plays it, and then I'll tell you why I think it is.
This is Amy Coney Barrett.
Don't have any agenda. I have no agenda to try to overrule Casey. I have an agenda to stick to the rule of law.
As a judge, it is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. By it, I mean Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Been reaffirmed many times.
Roe versus Wade, decided in 1973, is a precedent in the United States Supreme Court. It was reaffirmed in Casey in 1992 and in several other cases. So a good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court, worthy as treatment of precedent like any other.
Roe versus Wade is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. It was decided in 1973. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed the decision. When a decision is challenged and it is reaffirmed, that strengthens its value.
I believe the Constitution protects the right to privacy. And I have no reason or agenda to prejudge the issue.
What would he have done if he'd asked?
Senator, I would have walked out the door. It's not what judges do.
So this is where, and by the way, there is a clip, and I didn't send it to Gary. There's a clip by Alito, who was nominated, I believe, in 2006 by George W. Bush. Alito had pretty much presaged this when he said, when he was asked the question, it wasn't in this clip, it was in another clip, and he had talked about this full-throated disagreement that he had on a philosophical basis, which was interesting. But what I think if there is harm, it's in this, that we have the confirmation hearings post Robert Bork. It started with Bork, and everybody learned from Bork. You don't want to get borked.
Right.
So there's this now, what I would characterize as, boy, Dawson looks good now, doesn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
he's aged in reverse.
I think he had appeal.
Yeah? Yeah, he looks
Ben.
really good.
That's our new guy, Ben.
Oh, hi, Ben.
Killing it.
I thought it was Dawson. We should get a picture of Ben. It looks like Dawson's younger version.
Let's wait till week 2 before we start doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not concerned about the who leaked it. I'm not concerned about whether it's going to freeze the 5 or the 4 or whether it was a recent vote. I think what it does is it deals a fatal blow to this confirmationist theater process, because that's what it's become. We ought to just call it what it is. If you're the president and if you control the Senate, because that's a key given McConnell, then you're going to get who you want. And, and you're going to know what you get, and that's what you bought. If you don't control the Senate, guess what? You're not going to get who you want.
Right. And so now there's talk about packing the court, and then it just becomes this arms race where they go, when our guys are in charge, we're going to have guys in that think like us, and when your guys are in charge, you'll get to get guys that think like you, but then we'll get more of our guys when we're in charge next, and there's going to be 200 people in the Supreme Court. I don't think people want that, but they're constantly talking about it.
Yeah, and by the way, okay, I've got to do a spot. By the way, Gary is doing the job of 3 guys, or at least his arms are.
Yes, he's doing a lot of gesticulating.
First, True Bill. Wonder why free trials renew without your consent? And consent's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a scam. I agree. Don't let corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill right now. Take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year. Truebill has helped 2 million plus users save over.
Wait, give me the number again.
Truebill has helped 2 million users save over
$100 million.
$100 million. Bing, bing, bing. Just link your accounts, and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. I did this, by the way, after they started sponsoring us. I love this. I love this app. It's the best. Right, Gary?
That's right. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/doubt. Go right now, truebill.com/DOUBT. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/doubt.
So what I was going to say is now I've seen, as you said, there's all kinds of solutions that are being proposed. One of the arguments that I've heard is 3 of these justices, or 4 of the justices, I think if you're going to do it accurately, 4 of the justices have been nominated by presidents who did not win the popular vote.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's under our electoral system. That's the way it is. I mean, that to me is okay, so what? That's an interesting, when I'm playing, a trivia game, I'll know that. But, or maybe I'll lose it because it's not 4. But the interesting thing is that if you're all worked up, then there is a solution. The solution is elect or recapture the Senate and the presidency in the same 2-year cycle, or make sure that the Supreme Court justices that are on your side of the table are eating healthy and exercising.
But you were originally taking sort of umbrage with the fact that everyone has to go up there and basically it's a two-way highway. The Republicans are going to put the Democrat nominee up there, and they're going to talk about the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, and they're going to go, We
just went through it with the former public defender. It's theater.
Right. And so they're going to say, no, if I get elected, I'm not going to take your guns away or whatever. Or if you nominate me confirm me, I'm not going to take your guns away. I'm not interested in everything. Then the right has to go, I'm not going to take your abortion away. No, you got me all wrong.
All theater.
And then they'll go in and do what they do once the process is done.
I wish there was Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski who had both voted for Kavanaugh. And then yesterday it was like straight out of Casablanca. Shocked. I can't believe it. Shocked. I mean, if you're a senator and you're shocked, that should be a disqualifying thing right there.
Well, so now let's just say this goes through and then it goes to the states. And so where we've been heading for a while now, and maybe this is just going to get us there that much faster, is just if you think this way, then you're going to live in Florida and Texas. And if you think the other way, then you're going to live in New Jersey and California. And it will be a sort of self-separation of citizens, which sounds a little slippery slopey and maybe not utopian. But look, I live in California, and there's many things I disagree with here that are being foisted upon me, the taxes and regulations and things like that, just from a standpoint of I like to build shit. It's nearly impossible to build shit in California, and especially in Los Angeles. It's burdensome, it's overregulated, it's whatever. So it's not like, I live in California and I agree with everything they do in California. It's I live in California and I sort of tolerate the things they do in California. But I would be happy to move to Texas and build myself a 50,000-foot garage and have the permit process take 3 days instead of 3 years. So at some point, the people who would like to live in abortion's not at the top of my list, but building and safety is. I might choose to relocate to a place that was more hospitable to me and my interests. And I think that's just going to happen. I mean, I think COVID started it. Taxes started. Businesses start moving. Elon Musk, he came to California because, hey, it's got the beaches, it's got the ladies, it's got Hollywood. This is a great place.
Silicon Valley.
Right. But he left because he's running a business. So he was sort of self-selecting and I think people may then move. I can't imagine anyone moving to California, but maybe they'll move to New York for the same reasons or different reasons. They have more of a social agenda, and this place is socially on par with their politics versus, taxes, regulation, a little more of a policy brass tax thing, which would be sort of how I would vote. And then everyone will just go off to their own place and live. Now, I suspect, and I think kind of the problem is I do think Florida wants to be left alone, and I think Texas wants to be left alone, and I think those states want to be left alone. California is not down with leaving other states alone. You got to think like them. And Texas and Florida, like, why do we have to ruin our state with your fucking horrible policies? But we do that in California. We go, you have to think like us. And now the abortion will be left up to the states, and people will vote with their U-Hauls. And the question, and then if you live in Florida and they vote on abortion and they say, all right, 12 weeks or 15 weeks or first trimester only or whatever they arrive on, then you will live in a state who agrees possibly with you about abortion. or at least it will be voted on, and that will be what that state will be. And then Mississippi will be one thing, and New York will be another thing, and Massachusetts will be something else, and Florida will be very different than Massachusetts. And so I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you like a universal number that was the law of the land? Let's just say you made it 15 weeks. You can get an abortion up until 15 weeks, but not after 15 weeks as the universal law of the land. Or would you like the states, again, California will be very different than Texas and Florida in terms of how they, or Mississippi and how they vote, or would you like to keep it up to the state?
If you would ask me to handicap, and I may have done this previously, I would have said they weren't going to, and they still haven't because this is a draft opinion, but I would have predicted on this particular case that they would have incrementally changed and gone to a 15 or 16-week period, whatever the proposed law was. I did not think they were going to do a wholesale revocation because the right to privacy is so entrenched, meaning over 50 years. Everything that they said that now looks like theater, I think there's some truth to that. Clearly, you've got the trend in the law, and that's kind of what I like about the law, is you can say, okay, we've got 1973, we've got Roe. They come up with this idea of a right to privacy. By the way, let me just do one slam on Gavin Newsom, who is going to proposed a bill to enshrine the abortion rights in the California Constitution. I would invite him. Gary, do you have Article 1, Section 1? Of the California Constitution?
He's got to go out to his car.
Yeah, I was going to invite Gavin Newsom to read the very first. You don't have to go to how nettlesome it is to go to the middle of the Constitution. Go right to Article 1, Section 1 of the California Constitution. Look what the very last word of that sentence in Section 1 is: the right to privacy. It's already in our Constitution. Okay, It's not in the U.S. Constitution, but if he had taken a civics course, he would know that in California it's already there. It's already. So do we need another bill? It reminds me of when guys do hate crimes. We got to have a hate crime enhancement. Why? You're already, if you commit murder, you're already going away with a life top. So I just think when you have a 50 years of precedent and then you reverse it because of a difference in the composition, that does something to the law. I think that's a real problem in the law. And it is going to, as a criminal, somebody who's practiced his share of criminal defense, you've got, can you imagine a prosecutor now bringing a perjury case, and he's going to say, this was a material fact that I relied upon. I can imagine making the argument, oh, really? You're going to say this guy's guilty of perjury? What about the 5 or 8 of the Supreme Court justices on either side who either lied about Roe or lied about Heller, which is the other? What about that? Those are the people in the ultimate tribunal.
Well, they're under oath. When are they sworn in?
Sworn in.
Yeah, so there you go.
Right.
That's an interesting thought.
How do you prosecute perjury going forward under the elements of a crime when you can basically invite the jury to nullify anything because the high priests and priestesses of the law have basically committed perjury in their thing? Now, what are they going to say? No, Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett or Kendall Jackson or whatever are going to say, no, that was then, this is now. I mean, that was a famous Scalia line. But the fact is that anybody who's right thinking is going to see that and know that those were scripted deflections.
That's a brilliant take. Where'd you get that, Tubin?
Hold on. Okay, Gary, can you put the camera up?
No,
that's it. That would be a very good argument. So where are you then with states' rights?
I like the idea of states' rights. I always have. I don't like the idea of states' rights for rights that have a 50-year history. You know, when they talked about, there's something that's very appealing to me of super precedent. Super precedent are cases that we know that people kind of intuitively, both lawyers and lay people have known. I don't agree with Amy Coney Barrett when she says that it does not become super precedent when people are still questioning its legitimacy. That makes no sense to me. That is not a legal principle. I've never understood any statutory or case construction that says, well, if somebody questions it or takes a vote on it, that doesn't make sense. Super precedent is something where there's a line of cases where so that it has been affirmed by the Supreme Court. It's then challenged again. It's reaffirmed by the Supreme Court. It was 20 years later in Casey. And it's been reaffirmed and taken in another direction when it comes to gay marriage, when it comes to the rights of privacy, when it comes to even interracial marriage. So I just think, and I would tell you as somebody who practices and tries to follow the law, that kind of tears apart the underpinnings of the law to the point where when I make an argument like this, the perjury, you as a layperson say, yeah, you know, that kind of it appeals to me. I mean, I can see where a prosecutor would get up and say, oh, Mr. Garrigus is just appealing to your base instincts or something. No, it's appealing because how am I supposed to do or act or order my life if you can just get up in order to get the job as high priest or priestess and just lie through your teeth?
Well, you said earlier that this was a draft that may not be what they're thinking about or doing or not. I mean, you didn't say it that way, but I mean, the draft seemed pretty well thought out and they seem pretty serious about it.
Well,
would you think it's an authentic representation of what they're planning on doing?
I think that the reason when I first read the opinion, and I didn't read the whole 98 pages or whatever it was the first night, but I only got to page 10 and I said, yeah, this was written by Alito. There was no question. Either his clerks or him wrote that because it had all the earmarks of an Alito. And then they came out and Chief Justice Roberts confirmed, yes, in fact, it's authentic. We've got the marshal of the Supreme Court doing an investigation. You know, I've seen all the speculation. Was it this clerk? Was it some clerk wrote a article on Roe? Some people suggesting it was Breyer on his way out the door. I mean, that's all. Who cares about that? What I care about is when it was reported that this was the vote as of a week ago, because apparently this was drafted in February. And if it was the vote as of a week ago, you can ascribe all kinds of motivations. Let me tell you why it makes no sense to do so. You could say this is somebody who's trying to bring down the one of the votes in the majority. That would be what you would consider a liberal, somebody with a liberal predisposition. I can just as easily make the argument, no, it's somebody who wants to freeze those votes so they don't backtrack. You know, somebody who had a more conservative disposition fell into that. But at the end of the day, what difference does it make? It's been leaked before. It's not unprecedented, contrary to what everybody says.
What do you think the motivation for the leak was?
Well, I think that I could make the argument and believe that somebody did it because they wanted to it's a trial balloon, so to speak. We want to get it out there. We don't want it to come out of nowhere. We're going to condition it. And it's had this effect. Whoever did it, I don't know if they had the intent, but the conversation's already shifted from Roe is being reversed to the Parade of Horribles argument. Next up is going to be
gay marriage.
Gay marriage. Next up is going to be interracial marriage. All of what I was just talking about before, that has kind of shifted the conversation. We've already seen it. Watch MSNBC for 12 minutes and you'll see it.
So it still doesn't lead to the motivation precisely. I mean, is there a chance that the Supreme Court justices who are behind drafting this can see the crazy reaction that has taken place in the streets of America and think, you know, maybe we should walk this back? Can you walk it back? I think you could walk it back because I've thought all along that
especially with the Chief Justice, this is so antithetical to the Chief Justice's core philosophy, and not just what he said at confirmation hearings when he said just call balls and strikes. He has a well-documented, and some would call it Machiavellian. Others, I don't go there. I think he believes in incremental movement, and he thinks, and I tend to agree, if you start to reverse precedent that's 50 or 60 years old, absent some just horrific miscarriage, then you got a real problem. And it's interesting to me, I'll bring this full circle to one of the things we like to talk about. Why didn't they do this with the case Jacobson, which is that 105-year-old case that, as Gorsuch said, was had been somehow morphed into a towering presence to justify all the COVID cases, as I've talked about with you before, which segues into Tinhorn Flats. Hallelujah. Ooh. Yesterday we survived on one count.
Well, I want all the official particulars. First, okay. I'll tell you about Freshly. Oh, you don't want those frozen, pre-cooked, pre-frozen, tasteless, processed meals. Freshly, quality meals without the hard work, designed by nutritionists, cooked by chefs, delivered fresh, ready to eat in just 3 minutes. Let me clear my throat. At the end of a long day, takeout shouldn't be the only option. They have some of the best, tastiest meals I've ever had, and I've tried many of the different companies. Use Freshly, and you go to their website, use their app. You can find meals that fit your lifestyle, dietary needs, taste, and family size. Choose from over 50 nutritionist-designed entrees. New meals added every week. Skip the grocery shopping stores and the dirty dishes. Go with Freshly, right, Gary?
That's right. Stop stressing about dinner. Right now, Freshly is offering our listeners $125 off your first 4 orders when you go to freshly.com/DOUBT. That's $125 off at freshly.com/doubt.
Tinhorn Flats.
So interesting. I mentioned last week's show that we were in our litigation with the city of Burbank, that we were up against yet another what's called a demur, which is the legal term for a motion to dismiss. We had lost, but the judge gave us the ability to recast our arguments.
Family business restaurant, been in Glendale for 50 years, run by a friend of mine from high school, and
with an IAN on the end of his name,
right?
Armo
Lepagian, and right? they closed. They moved everyone out. Now the place has a very nice sized patio in back. So when they closed down indoor dining, they all moved it out to the patio. And then at some point they closed down outdoor dining, and it was at that point that Tinhorn Flats defied city of Burbank and state of California and said, we shall remain open. I took my son down there,
you sure
and we enjoyed a hamburger outside. And then the next thing I know, there was they started putting plywood on the doors and then sandbags on the doors, and then shut the power. And a fence, and not a temporary fence. I'm a former builder. They got a coring bit and a roto hammer, and they cored down into the concrete sidewalk, and they put those posts into the ground. Not a temporary fence that was just there in a couple of feet and could be removed. This is cemented into the ground, and I imagine it remains.
They then basically, the city filed against his ex-wife who owned the property, got her to evict, and next thing you know, basically took this guy's property without any kind of due process whatsoever.
Right. And
along the way, arrested poor Lucas 3 times over, this 21-year-old kid. Yeah, there's the fence. Arrested him completely without probable cause, and a judge who I've known for many years since he was a DA, basically diverted Lucas off, and that case will be formally dismissed. But we survived yesterday. We actually survived the motion, and now we live to one of my first acts will be is setting the deposition of this unique individual whose name I can't remember, who's on the city.
Constantine.
There you go.
He's He's highly qualified to sit on the Burbank City Council because he's lived out of his car for a while, and has emotional shortcomings or mental or psychological
exactly.
issues. He's on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Constantine Anthony. That's right. That's what we want. We want people that are having difficulty sorting out their life and their thoughts making policy. If people are so fucking dumb, this guy Constantine is like, how dare you attack me? I lived in my car. Oh, great. You should go run Nabisco then, right?
Right.
Are there any,
by the way, have you tried to apply for a job as a manager at a 7-Eleven? Because I think you'd have a hard time even becoming the night manager.
You wouldn't make it at AM PM with that resume. But all right.
Okay,
they took a thing that had nothing to do with science, with no data whatsoever. They imposed it, and they shut this business down, and they put a fence around it. And this should be the poster child for tyrannical government and why we shouldn't be growing it and we should be shrinking it. And it's really just simply what happens when you defy a group who has no evidence whatsoever that outdoor dining posed a threat at any time. This is a completely arbitrary decision. And then the question is then at what point do you stop obeying arbitrary decisions? So if I have a business and you say, no more doing business inside your business, go out to the parking lot. And I might go, okay. And then I do my business out in the parking lot. But at what point when they go, you have to go up on the roof or you have to say, Ali, Ali, Oxenfree before you deliver the check? I mean, as long as we're talking arbitrary, it's arbitrary. There's no science behind. There's no science behind outdoor dining, and there at least pre-science to initiate.
No, there's
the decree.
Science now that we know it was radically ignorant.
But we shut the beaches and we shut the park and we shut the
Horse
park.
trails.
So here's the deal: when the government does that, and they take a small family business of 50 years and they shutter them, and we find out that they were completely in the wrong by doing this, then should we not have recourse legally? Or could the government just show up at this podcast studio right now and say, I don't like the words you're choosing, we're shutting you down?
Remember, just all I have to keep reminding people is, as we sit here today in May of 2022, we still, in California, are under an emergency order.
But courage through crisis.
That's right. That's right. And I think we cherish our diversity as well. That's the next. So we have our cherished diversity intact, even if we don't have our civil liberties. So this is the only case I have seen throughout the country. Now, I know they got very officious with a gym out of New Jersey where they tried to shut them down and they started putting guards and shit.
Right.
And it's always the bluest of the blue states that are always calling Trump an authoritarian dictator who are doing all the dictating. So methinks thou protest too much. But this is the only one I'm aware of where they physically put a fence around the place.
Not only physically put a fence around it, but so far as I can tell, this may be the only case that has survived so far the motions to dismiss were against a governmental entity where the governmental entity is claiming that they can do basically whatever they want. So knock on, this is official wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the next step then?
Well, the depositions. I'm gonna do Anthony. I'm gonna have it videotaped. I'm sure we may see it played somewhere.
Now you want to give us a little sneak previews of some of the questions you might ask in a deposition?
When you invoked Rosa Parks at the council meeting. And
he did.
He did, yes. Were you thinking that Barrett is very similar to Rosa Parks? Were you considering Barrett on the forefront of the civil rights?
Yes.
Because why did you pick Rosa Parks and not, I don't know, somebody segregationist down in the South? I mean, obviously you had some affinity for him, didn't you?
I remember that completely asinine statement, which was, Rosa Parks went to the back of she didn't sit in the back of the bus. So what she did was wrong by sitting in the front of the bus. So technically the city or the state should have arrested her.
Yeah.
Which seemed inane and bizarre. It was the most.
If you watch, and maybe Gary will play some, I'll certainly play some of the outtakes of it during his deposition, but it would strike me as if one deposition of him and maybe one other city council person, and I think somebody's going to come to their senses.
And cut a check.
How can you just steal? Basically, it's municipal theft. It is.
Yes.
It's basically just taking somebody's property without any procedural due process.
Well, it's one thing if it's eminent domain, like where you're expanding the freeway and you live in an old farmhouse and we need it for the greater good. But this is not that.
No,
this is
it's
you
the
targeting
opposite.
a business.
Right.
Do you have it?
I'm
Gary?
looking for it. I don't have it right this second.
I'll buy you a second, but it's Constantine evoking Rosa Parks at I think it was like a Zoom city council.
It was a Zoom
meeting.
city, and I think Alexandra was on it.
I know the exact clip. I'm just trying to find it on my computer.
All right, let me just hit Geico. Would love to save a little money on your car insurance? Well, who doesn't want a deal when it comes to great rates on insurance for everything? Geico has you covered. Insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, RV, even homeowners, condos, and renters insurance. And you can save more with their special discounts when you bundle. Plus, they have the easy-to-use Geico mobile app and 24/7 roadside assistance, so it makes it very easy to switch to Geico. It's a no-brainer. Switch today to Geico and figure out just how much you could save. Oh, boy, do I look forward to that deposition.
Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine?
I
can't even,
I
just pinch myself.
I'll tell you, the sadder part about this whole chapter is you and I, in a way, it makes me think a lot of the Daniel Shaver case, right? This is a story of a man literally being executed by a police department. And I choose my words carefully. I don't say that, but he was literally executed. And the legacy media just sort of decided, it's not really fitting our narrative. It wasn't a black man and a white cop. It was a white man and a white cop. And they kind of went like, fuck it. That should have been one of the biggest cop misconduct shootings, historically ever. Okay. But they didn't really like it. And, LA Times, New York Times, CNN, whatever, they should have been all over this Tinhorn Flats case. And America should know about it, and they should be outraged as to what is happening on their soil. But they're kind of like, those guys are free thinkers, and we're COVID wackadoodles. So, the fact that
the LA Times was, there's Trump people outside protesting. That was kind of their take on it. Really? You're taking somebody's property without due process. You're destroying them, and that's what you want to do? That's your take on this situation?
Right. And the LA Times should have been squarely in the corner of Tinhorn Flats instead of there's a bunch of MAGA guys out front.
Yep.
All right. Do we have it, or can we find it?
We do not. Unfortunately, It's only online as a 4.5-hour meeting, and I can't isolate it fast enough.
Scrub through. All right. We'll get it for our next episode. Right. This week, Indianapolis Helium Comedy Club. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, doing 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, live podcast, and then stand up as well. And then you can go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows coming up. Mark, what do you have?
We've got, if you're in New York City, go to Grand Central Terminal to Prova Pizza, Times Square at the Moxie Hotel for Love Pizza. If you're in L.A., Dawson was just at the Engine Company 28 at the airport, also downtown, 10E, Mediterranean Tapas downtown. Or if you're in Palm Springs, go by Gigi's.
So until next time, I'm Crow for Mark Garrigo saying mahalo.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.